we have in chapter 12 a great portent, right? Again, a vision appears, and a woman clothed the sun with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. Sorry, I keep trying to move this little box and forwarding it. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pangs in the agony of giving birth. And then another portent appeared in heaven, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems, again with the great horrors writing on this later in chapter 17. And his tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to deliver a child, so that he might devour her child as soon as it was born. And she gave birth to a son, a male child who is to rule all the nations with a scepter of iron. But her child was snatched away and taken to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, so that there she can be nourished for 1,260 days. This is Revelation 12. So immediately we can draw some contrast that I've already highlighted, right? In which she is in one of the most vulnerable states that a woman can be in, which is not only pregnant, but actually in birth pangs, in the agony of giving birth. So highly feminized, vulnerable in this particular way, right? About to have a child, threatened by this monster, the great portent of the serpent, the great red dragon with the 7 heads and 10 horns, who is trying to snatch the child as soon as she gives birth, right? So that moment of danger is there. That's the drama that's being acted out. She gives birth. And here we have, again, a shift then to the focus on her child. We're told not just any child, a male child, right? Who is to rule all the nations with a scepter of iron. So we have in our heads, right, these highly masculine symbols of rule, of power, also prefiguring, right, who is going to be the warrior that fights and wins. So the figure of Christ, one like the Son of Man, who's going to win in the final battle, and triumph and have victories, right? Juxtaposed to her vulnerability as a mother. And not only has she just given birth, but her child is immediately taken away from her, right? Snatched away from her. So there are many different feminist reads of that possible, through different experiences of losing children, having children taken away very quickly, the experiences of different women, also of dying in childbirth, being vulnerable, right? So you have all these experiences and vulnerability shown in this particular way. There's also, and we've brought this up in the past in speaking about this woman, and someone I remember brought this up in discussion of the figure of Isis or other goddess cults in the ancient world, which this takes a part of, right? So whoever John is describing this woman using heavenly language that could be seen as having relationship to Isis and other goddess cults like of Demeter, the Great Mother. So she is, right, the Great Mother, understood in this way. Also acting out here is the combat myth that we'll see in the ancient Near East and other tales. We also have Apollo destroying the Python, and rescuing his mother Leto as part of this part of the story, right? So John may be borrowing imagery or worship of the Great Mother in this particular way, but he immediately takes that focus away up from her power and focuses it on the male child, right? So there's an association and then erasure at the same time of this particular woman figure in Revelation chapter 12. But the closer counterpart that we have to the Whore of Babylon is, surprisingly, the New Jerusalem, right? It might seem that this figure, right, is a closer counterpart because we have someone who is seen as also a great figure in some way, if we're going to think about the later association with Mary, etc. Also a woman figure, because we have described a woman in very fleshly ways, the way the Whore of Babylon is described in very fleshly ways. It's easy to construct that